So I'm going to be really brief with this part, and then I'm going to open it up for a lot of flexibility. This is 18 pages long, and no way do I expect you to sit here and listen to me read it. So just a tiny bit about my background. I am sixth-generation rancher and farmer from a little mountain valley in Northern California called Hayfork. And my parents had an acre market garden when I was in kindergarten, which was a really fun experience for me. And then we bought an acre in town and had a small farm, similar to what I have now, less garden, more critters. And I lived 18 years in Zone 9 on the coast in Humboldt County. And then 5 years here in what I consider to be Zone 4. I also have a local landscaping business. This is my card if anybody wants it. It'll get you to me one way or another. And so I do maintenance and installation. I teach classes. I'm a little nervous. I'm usually less nervous, but I thought I had a little bit more time. So I currently have an acre farm myself, just with chickens and many thousand square feet of food and medicines. And I did one season of farmer's market in Big Fork. It really wasn't the right fit for me, but I just can't compete with some of those big places, you know, with acres and acres and rows of food. But I do still sell my produce to all of my landscaping clients, which works out pretty great. And I helped co-found the Free the Seeds and the Flathead. So if you guys have any questions about that, I'd be happy to answer them or send you to people who can answer them now. I only helped coordinate the first 2 years and then stepped away from that. I have a tremendous background in FFA, which I'm a big proponent of, and that's where I learned a lot about livestock judging, butchering, everything you can imagine. Future Farmers of America. And horticulture. We had a beautiful greenhouse. It was my first experience with a greenhouse. And I have a BA in liberal arts and a PhD in hard knocks, I like to say. So all that said, I'm not an expert. I didn't go to school to do this. I thought I wanted to be an English teacher. And because I was sort of moving away from the FFA thing, being rebellious towards my family, and was like, oh, that was actually what I should have done. So, throughout here, if you guys want to go home later and look at this and actually understand what it says, IMO means in my opinion. That's my blanket disclaimer that says somebody would probably argue with me, but that's okay. And I do hope to actually publish one day, so please just use this as a reference. That's just where I am with that. And someday in my future, I will have a website with a blog on it, maybe this winter. So other classes cover a lot of things I'm going to skip here tonight. Food forests, berries, trees, hoop house health or greenhouse health, soils, water capture, and pest management. And those are all obviously classes, and arguably my class is a lot longer than what I'm going to cram it into. So I said food, medicine, and pollinators. I focus largely on food. This is pretty much all medicine and pollinator business here. Yeah, I could talk about any of them, so I kind of wanted to get a feel for where everybody is on their skill level or what they would want me to focus. You mentioned pollinators. I couldn't talk an hour and a half about that. For me, that's pretty straightforward. But if I could just get a little 2 minutes of brainstorming, like I really want to hear about chickens, I want to hear about gardens, I want to hear about whatever. Oh yeah, they must not have all made their way around. Okay, sorry.
And just to interject you for just a second, in terms of, if people are wondering what happened to the greenhouse growing, so Jerome needed a little bit of a break, so Tawnya was kind enough to just step right in. So we're doing the food, medicine, and bees right now, and we'll do the greenhouse growing after that. But one thing that did come up in our initial brainstorm was people were really interested in bees and in pollinator plants. That's one part of the brainstorm.
Okay.
And I don't know what else people want to.
Is there anybody else who has thoughts, or I can just kind of trudge through this and we can let it go where it goes? Chickens? Okay.
The medicine aspect of it.
Chickens and medicine. Okay. Pardon me, medicine? Okay. So I hear chickens and medicine. So, and that's pretty great because I started off with chickens. And I promise my heart rate will come down. You know, I'll get here. I will arrive.
I'd be curious, just in terms of, how would you frame it if, in terms of zone 3, if you're living in harder climates, or zone 4, in terms of, a lot of people are saying zone 5, but.
So are you asking me to define zones?
No, what I'm asking is, how would you engage in the veggies and the fruit piece if you had a little bit more of a alpine climate or a little bit more of a...
Well, so the question is, how would you alter what I'm saying for what zone you're in, essentially? And so I grew for 18 years in Zone 9, and I made it my business the first year I lived here to figure out what it was like to grow in Zone 4. And one of the magazines I highly recommend, which I haven't found since this first one, is Zone 4. And she's just on the cover. She doesn't have the magazine. But whoever puts this magazine together is fabulous about that. And I have found it to be really useful in just Rocky Mountain gardening in general. But I think you just want to essentially look at anything you're growing for how many days of freeze it needs, or how many days of heat it needs, or how many long days it needs, if it's an onion, if it's a bean. I do talk about that a little bit in here. I say Zone 4, and the way I define it is just how I've experienced it. My Zone 5 plants suffer. My Zone 3 plants do fine. My Zone 4 plants flourish. So I consider this to be Zone 4. But it's really changing. This fall is the first fall I haven't had a hard killing frost. And look at all these flowers I still have. It's crazy, right? And as a landscaper, it's been a challenge because I can't cut down all these plants that are still alive so I can put them to bed because it's my job. If it's, so we just have to adapt. I mean, that's kind of the way I look at all of this. If we can't adapt, that's when we're going to suffer. So learn, pay attention. I'll say that 100 times tonight. Look at this, Mama. This is my notes. This is my teacher. I'm not an expert, but this is my mentor and guide right here. And these are my other mentors and guides, and they're date calendars. So for the first 3 years I lived here, I would just keep notes when I thought about it, about the weather. But now I do it every single day. And my raspberries are ripe, or, oh, they're actually overripe and I missed it because I'm not paying attention. Or my corn is awesome, let's let it go for another week or two, and now it's tough. Really important to have that. And I look back on it, and it's always very helpful. The September 15th for the last 4 years was a killing frost, almost on the dot. And this year, haven't had it. Still, 28 degrees the other night. It's not a killing frost. I mean, it was in the teens then, and it was like hammered black snot all over the garden. Nothing but black snot and pumpkins. And I've still I had zucchinis that were perfectly beautiful today. It's crazy. The plants are not happy. So I'll go back to chickens because that's where I started. And so I raised turkeys as a young girl. When I was 9 years old, and it was meat turkeys, I butchered, so I've done all that. And we treated our turkeys like pets, but they were livestock. So I learned a hard lesson my first few years of raising livestock about getting attached. I raised sheep, and I had a breeding project, which was especially heart-wrenching. When you have a ewe who gives birth, and then your dog kills the lambs, or your dog attacks the ewe when she's pregnant. And these are brutal lessons for young kids, which I totally encourage them to go through because it prepares you for life. All that said, I never got to have chickens. And I really wanted chickens, always. And when my husband found our house, it had a chicken coop already. And the permaculture mind of me was like, sweet, I am just jumping right into this. I don't care what the house looks like. Give me a chicken coop. So we went with that. And he has this fabulous picture of me in the chicken coop, and my eyes are like, ah! And the realtor says, don't you want to see the kitchen? And I'm like, no, we can change the kitchen. I'm sure it works, right? So there are some basics with chickens that will keep them really happy, and it goes for all livestock as far as I'm concerned in my experience. And I could just go through them really quickly. Shelter is number one, just like with us. You can really parlay anything that you need to what your animals need. Shelter has to be predator proof. Critters will get in. The people who had it before us, they lost, and they're like, we don't know why. And I'm like, okay, well, none of your latches are tight, and your window doesn't have a screen over it, and I could go on. So when we had to we had to redo the fence, so we trenched it, and I had learned this in my PDC. It was great, which I took in 2013. I think I said that. So anyway, so we put the chicken wire facing out, so when skunks and weasels and stuff wanted to dig in, they couldn't dig through it. Great. Then my dog was like, oh, the chickens get these great treats. I'm going to grab that chicken wire, and she would unravel it. And she got into that. I kept thinking, I can just reweave it. I can fix it. No. Welded wire on the outside of chicken wire is the only way to keep dogs and canines out of it. Just forget about chicken wire, keeping them out. But the chickens need it to stay in, or they will get hung up and stuff when they're little. And smaller breeds are really athletic and will fly out and will get eaten. Or they'll steal their nest. So we're a little acre in big, huge plots of huge farmland, and we have tremendous mice and fox, coyote, not really bad predators, but I've lost 4 chickens I think probably a couple to owls, one this year to a skunk, which it lost its life a couple days later. And I think last year probably a fox, because the kids saw a fox in the backyard just a couple days after that. So I really didn't want to catch a fox. I didn't want to have to deal with him. I wouldn't want to hurt him. So I just really willed him to leave. And I let my dog chase him as often as possible. And we actually did see him chase the fox. So I thought, good, we made your life unpleasant. Now you go away and we're okay here, because I don't want to have to do that. Skunks are another matter. Once they're under your chicken coop, forget about it. They're in. They're going to live under there and eat them whenever they're out. So with predator-proof stuff, I would say electricity for bigger stuff. And then shade and sun in equal parts are really important. They need to always be able to be cool or hot, and they know what they want. They only cool themselves through their comb. They don't pant or anything, so they need to have tons and tons of fresh water. I figured it out to be about 1 gallon a day per 5 birds. But they will go through it, and if they don't have it, they won't produce good eggs.
Do you use a heat lamp in the winter?
Yeah, I do. And I don't know if I have to, but my chickens live a pretty cush life. So, if I was living off-grid, I would do things differently by necessity, but I don't. So you have to use a red heat lamp or they'll peck each other all night long. I only use it, I did use it under 28, and I'm thinking more like under 20, 25 now. Yeah, and I've done a light at night to keep them, not all night, but to extend the day length. And I'm not sure it's necessary. My chickens lay in the winter anyway. So, it's just heavy on my electricity and, my overhead. You have to have a water heater because your water will definitely freeze and then they can't get it. So there's some gear involved for sure. I mean, chickens aren't totally cheap that way. So lots of fresh water. I feel that chickens have to have freedom. And it's not just because I'm like a liberal or whatever, but they have better eggs when they can forage. Their eggs are just better. And they're strong. Everyone loves my eggs. I sell my eggs for $4 a dozen, and they're not organic at all. I feed them store-bought food and, whatever. Nothing certified organic on my place. Not that I use any sprays or anything, but certified organic's a whole other ballgame. And organic food costs a fortune for chickens. But my eggs taste really good because the chickens are super happy. And I grow, probably 1/3 of my garden goes to my chickens just through food waste and stuff that'll rot here and there or whatever. And they're stoked. Those are happy chickens. When they come out, they follow me everywhere. And they also, like right now, they're going to get to work the hoop house because we just tore it out tonight. So they'll have tomatoes, tomatillos. It's like a salad in there. So protein is also really important for good eggs and also egg production. And a lot of eggs they'll say vegetarian or whatever, and I think that's poppycock. Chickens are omnivores all day long. They need protein. They need worms, bugs. They eat each other. I mean, it's not nice, but it happens. And if they're bleeding, they will peck each other. They actually had one chicken die by the beaks of its friends. So it happens. It's sad. But if you give them enough protein, they don't do that as much. They don't eat their own eggs as much. They will totally love to eat their own eggs if you don't get on top of that. And extra calcium is good because if the eggs are really strong, they peck at them to pull them underneath them, and they get a hole, and they're like, oh, wait, yolk? Oh, God, that's really good. I'm going to eat it. And they first were trying to have a clutch, and next thing you know, they're having lunch. They don't know the difference. They just know they need protein. So, they're super simple critters. They're sweet and wonderful and awesome, but, it's not a big, deep thing. So space is important for chickens. If they don't have enough, that's when they start pecking on each other. And in the winter, you'll notice their combs are bloody because they don't like to go out in the snow. We shovel our run and put straw in it. And, I try to get organic straw because they will peck at it and eat it. And I don't want weird stuff in my eggs. But I don't actually rake the chicken run and use it in my garden because I will throw bad weeds in there that I don't want coming back into my garden. So that just stays in there. And nesting boxes are important too. They really like their privacy, and they will have a favorite. I have this one. We have 4 nesting boxes here, and the back one will have like 8 eggs every day. And the other ones are getting neglected. I don't know what they're doing. And you can hear them squawking really loud, and it's like someone is waiting in front of that nesting box going, look, chick, I am ready right now. Like, get out. It's like somebody waiting outside the bathroom door. So I've seen it. It's actually really fun. And my husband and I, the first few years we had chickens, we would take a brew out in the evening and just sit on the roost and just like, these are the coolest critters ever. So we're also a cheap date, but it was fun. it's, gear for chickens is tricky. There's all different kinds of everything. We could talk about it for a while. We don't really need to. It's going to break, so you'll have a chance to try something different. North Valley Ag is a good source. The people there, Wes and Liddell and Wet and Mike, are super knowledgeable and friendly. It's a good source for pretty much everything. And I made my own 5-gallon bucket with, I call them nipples. They're little tappy jobs. It wastes a lot less water and it's a lot less dirty because chickens get their beaks filthy all the time and their water is super nasty. And you have to dump off the water. I have a good little system where I dump off the water every day and then my mulberries get that water. My mulberries are my zone 5 plants that suffer, but I still love them. And just my spiel about them is that in terms of yields, if you do all of that, you're going to be in really good shape. I have 24 chickens. I get 12 to 18 eggs a day. I sell 4 or 5 dozen a week. It pencils out. We're just about break even. But I get great manure. I get great composting. I get little buddies. It's super fun. Go ahead.
Do you have roosters?
Do I have roosters? I have had 6 roosters, and none of them have made the cut because I need my kids to take care of the chickens. And I had one spur my youngest through his pants and cut his leg. I had one rooster chase we call her the queen bird, Pepe. She's almost 5 years old now. And she's this huge cuckoo Moran, not a breed I recommend, by the way. She's laid probably 5 eggs in her life, but we love her. And she's the queen bird, though. She's in charge, and she's a very gentle leader. And we like that. We've had other alpha birds that were not gentle leaders, and it's a bummer. So she was broody, and when chickens are broody, other chickens attack them. It's a weird chicken thing. And so she came out, and he saw her and chased her all the way back into the run, into her nesting box, and was attacking her, and my husband put an end to him. So we ate roosters. It's not that yummy. You have to cook them for like 3 days. I mean, they're really, really, really tough. But they make good bone broth. So there are a few things I wouldn't, couldn't feed chickens, shouldn't feed chickens: garlic, citrus, dry beans, anything that'll puff up in their crop. Raw potatoes, nightshade plants I go real easy on. Obviously, true nightshade is a total no-no with the red or the purple berries. No uncooked rice, avocados, chocolates, or grapes. And, meat chickens are a whole other thing. So that's kind of my chicken spiel, basically. I did list some breeds that I really like. Red Sex-Link, Production Red, White Leghorn, Brown Leghorn, and Barred Rock, all of which I've gotten at North Valley Ag. They're getting more expensive every year. I think it would be a great thing to cooperatively buy chickens with a few people. You'd save a lot of money, and it's just a little bit hard to coordinate. But I'd sign up for that, especially meat birds, although I could probably use 25. It's just I'm not sure about raising that many. Meat birds are ready to slaughter in 8 weeks. It's a very short-term deal. They go through a lot of food. Go ahead.
I was just wondering why nightshade plants and small nuts after the chickens to eat. Is that not good for them?
Well, so I'm just going what I've read. I've never had a chicken die from it, but like when I pulled my hoop house today, all the good pepper plants we gave to the chickens. I don't compost tomato plants because of disease, so I bagged those. But I let them eat tomatoes for sure. But I don't feed them any potato plants ever. Anything that I consider to be a relative of nightshade, bindweed, morning glory, all trash. And then true nightshade's definitely trash. I've read stories of it killing geese and stuff. So I just don't want to risk it. If I don't know, if I pull a weed, I like to identify my weeds. Oh, this is pigweed. Should chickens have it? And I haven't found anything that says they can or can't, so I don't feed it to them. So, okay, so I'm going to move on because I'm not keeping track of my time, so hopefully somebody is. Medicine, you guys want me to skip to medicine. So we'll do that, and then we'll talk about food with whatever time we have left. Medicine, I think, is last on here before resources.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
Did we hear you correctly in saying that you do not compost tomato plants?
I don't.
Why?
In my experience, tomatoes are disease-ridden, bug-ridden, and not a good risk for my compost pile. Oh. And my chickens get into my compost pile like crazy, and that's a nightshade overdose. I grow like 30 tomato plants in a hoop house that are, it's a lot. It's too much. And I've done it before, and they broke it down and everything, and nobody died, but I want to eventually use that in hugel beds and stuff, and I don't want it to have disease. I don't want blossom end rot to work its way back into my tomato soil. So that's just it's not totally conscious and proper and groovy and all that, but it's just what I've done. I'm trying to find my medicine page.
13.
Thank you for knowing my guide better than me. Okay, medicine, yay. One of the things I really wanted to do when I got property was to grow medicine. And I kind of have made it my job to educate myself about medicine. And this is one of my gurus, Rosemary Gladstar. She's amazing. Susan Weed, I don't have a book of hers because I have her e-zine. Two people I know who are just so knowledgeable. Any question I have, I will double check on my medicines before I use them or feed them to my kids. You know, it's like, okay, black elderberry. Let's be sure this is black elderberry. Let's be sure we know what to do with it. You know, just always cross-referencing, and really excellent resource. She's also, this has, well, you can see on the front a little teapot, a really good resource on how to use medicine, how to actually make it. Because it's fun to grow it, but then making it from growing it into your pantry is another matter sometimes. Another good resource locally is Center for Native Plants. Haley Moore is a partner there, and I've learned a lot from her. Skeeter Polaski, you guys have probably talked about him, I'm assuming. He is how I met her and another friend of mine by working out at Mountain Meadow Herbs, and she knew just about as much as him. Like, she's awesome. She's really knowledgeable. And I'm not sure where to find her these days. I'm pretty sure she's still there. She's super busy.
Still there.
Is she?
She's still amazing.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, she's really great. So some basic stuff, super easy to grow. I kind of piled everything in here. I mean, monkshood's not really medicine, it's poison, but it's beautiful and is blooming right now. So that was just an example of the flowers I have in my yard, because I always have a lot. Elderberry is my favorite medicine to grow. I got 4 different plants from a nursery back east, and they cross-pollinate each other. And I've already dried 2 pounds of them, given a bunch to my friends, and I have, I don't even know how much more, a lot more. So I'm happy to share these with everybody. Easy to process. You just strip all these guys off, which you get nice blue fingers, and then you dry them either in an oven or a solar dehydrator or food dehydrator with like paper towels or something, and then bag them up, and then I make a syrup with them, and we use it, I mean, every day all winter. It's the best antiviral on the planet as far as I'm concerned.
Who brought the elderberry syrup that was, okay.
Yeah, so this is good stuff. And all this stuff I'm happy to share. I brought it to share, so I don't know how that would work out, but you guys are welcome to share it. So excuse me, elderberries. Okay, so calendula is first on the list, and she's at the bottom of the pile, so I'll just work through what I have handy here. This is feverfew. And with feverfew, if you cut it back after it's done blooming, it'll all come back again. You'll get...
Can we pass these around?
Sure, the elderberries might be a little messy.
Well, maybe not the elderberry.
But yeah, sure, feverfew. So we're passing around feverfew. I have made tinctures with that. If you use it on a regular basis, it's good for people who have chronic headaches. It's good for fevers. I haven't actually used it because I'm a little sketched with my kids, and I don't really get fevers. It's mostly my kids. But I have tinctures of it. Sage is arguably a medicine, but I don't use it that way. Thyme, I've seen people use this in tinctures with echinacea, which I just love the smell of thyme. I dry it and use it in culinary, recipes mostly. Come on, guys. Also not a medicine, that's a bee talk. Okay, here we go. So here's calendula. And I use Resina calendula, which is the orange. I got my seeds from Fedco. I've gathered seeds from 1 million people. This orange seems to be dominant genetically, and I think definitely the most powerful medicine. I mean, I would seriously, if I had a rash from nettle, I would just rub it on there, and it totally heals it.
And what is that again?
This is calendula. And I have some seeds, which will probably be another big mess. So the seeds are pretty easy to identify. Once you see a calendula seed, you'll probably always remember it. But they are very, I won't call them invasive because that makes it sound bad, but they love to spread. They get crazy. And I have baby calendula coming up in the garden right now, so they don't care how cold the temperature is or anything. They're going to keep going. I just pull them out, though. It's really easy. You just pull them out, and then you harvest the petals. So if you want to use this stuff, you just, well, a lot of times they have little bugs in them because the bugs love them, but just pull these petals off. And I like to put them on a window screen in my garage or someplace where nobody's going to mess with it, and let them dry. And then I'll make an infused oil with it, with some kind of good oil that I like for my skin, and just put it in like a jar inside of a bag on my hot tub or something out in the heat. But inside, you want it in the dark. You don't want it out in the sun. It'll make it go rancid. So that's calendula. And then here's chamomile. Oh, this is a calendula plant. And you can see it's got new buds on it. It will just keep going and going and going if you deadhead it. This is chamomile. It's a little bit past its prime, but you can smell that delicious chamomile smell. Makes an excellent tea for bad tummies. Sleeping, obviously, everybody knows that. But my daughter uses it for nausea, and she really likes it. If it has honey, of course.
Does your chamomile, does it self-seed? Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's not perennial.
No, it's not. I would call it a hardy annual.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. This is mint, which is good for belly aches, and I add it to most of my medicinal teas to make it taste nicer. I haven't made tinctures with mint because I just don't really feel like I need to. And this is a medicine I've been using lately because I've had some gnarly insomnia, and whoa, it really works. It's poppy. And I mean, it is like knock you on your rear. I'll go to bed and I have a stretch I do before I go to sleep. And I woke up the other night with my butt up on the pillow and my work sweatshirt on. And I'm like, it's 1:30. Whoa. Okay. So all that said, I haven't given it to my children. But the way I make the tincture for this is I use the blossom, the leaves, not the stem, not the seeds, and the root. All three together. And when I make a tincture, I'll put like a pretty good sized chunk of this on a cutting board, chop it up, fresh just because it takes space if I wait until it's dry. Stick it in a jar, cover the jar, cover the material. I think it's called medium. I can't really remember the terms. Cover it with Everclear. Menstruum, thank you. Then this is like this is the medium, I think. Anyway, so I cover it with Everclear, put the lid on it, label it, put it in the dark. Shake it after a couple weeks, shake it. And I have never drained mine or done anything with it, and it's fine. Maybe more strong, but it works really well. So there's that. And let's see if I covered everything that I harvested. I think I did. Okay, so let me just go through my list and see if there's anything else in here. I think I brought yarrow greens, but because the blooms are all cut now. So I really like yarrow also. I use it as an antiviral. I actually make a tea that has yarrow blossoms, yarrow leaves, elderberry, ginger, mint, rose hips. I like hibiscus because it makes it pink. It's pretty. I'm drawing a blank on. I use lemon balm in it, and I don't have echinacea harvested yet, so I make a tea with all of that, and then a pretty good sized jar, and then I have the kids take shots of it because yarrow can be hallucinogenic in large doses. I don't want to give it to my kids, but I've never had any problems with that as far as bellies or anything. Skullcap is another good one. Should I already pass skullcap around? I only could find one. I have a sneaky plant in my garden that looks a lot like skullcap right next to it, which is not good. You don't want to have that in a medicinal garden. That's past its point of harvest. They have little blue flowers on them. I've harvested it once, and it takes me a long, it grows so prolifically, it's like way too much. So I've only made one batch of tincture, but it's a really gentle nervine sleep aid. I used it when I was pregnant. I'm trying to think of who wrote that other book. It was I wish I could have found it when I brought it, but it's basically a woman's moontime herbal thing, you know, for safe stuff when you're pregnant. So skullcap was on that list. I had really bad insomnia when I was pregnant with my last one, and it helped quite a bit. Although I will say it's easy to get a resistance to it. It's pretty mellow. So I started feeling like I was using too much, and I was basically drinking Everclear, which I don't want to do. So I stopped using that. And valerian is one that some people will say is a narcotic, that it's actually really strong. I haven't had that experience with it. I don't know how you would know that, I guess. But I've just bought it. I have valerian plants. They get huge, huge. They're really beautiful. They have these lovely lace leaf flowers. They're a backdrop by my medicinal garden. The aphids love them, which is a drag. And you have to harvest them before those blooms go because they will take over your garden. And echinacea, I mentioned narrow leaf. What I understand about roots is that you want to wait about 4 years to harvest them so that they're full potency for medicine. I haven't done it because I just haven't really needed to. Feverfew comfrey is a good one. Wow, so I fell down the steps in 2014 carrying a sheet full of all this laundry from my bedroom because I'm a massive multitasker and not very intelligent some mornings. And I stepped on it and wrapped myself in it and folded over my ankle, and I'm certain I broke it. I mean, it was a horrible, horrible thing. I couldn't move. I called my husband, and I'm like, okay. And I hadn't had a comfrey bed yet. I knew the neighbor had a volunteer patch of comfrey. I said, go dig up this comfrey, stick it in the blender with some water, and bring it to me. All right. And so I just smashed this poultice on my ankle. It never bruised, but I couldn't walk on it for a week. But it healed in 2 weeks, and it still gives me trouble because I should have gone to the doctor, and I don't have insurance, and I didn't. But the way it helped with the bruising, I had heard about it. I really wanted to try it. It was crazy effective. It was almost scary that it didn't bruise. I couldn't believe it. So I grow a huge patch of it for green manure, medicine. The bees love it. A lot of my talk is like total crossover. You know, pollinators and medicine and food. It really all goes together, which is why I love permaculture. I just use leaves. Yep, I've only ever used leaves. I have the comfrey with the purple flowers, which I understand is not the kind that seeds. I think the yellow flowers goes to seed. Susan Weed has a really nice archived blog about comfrey, which clarified it for me. She drinks it every day, which I don't.
Rosemary Gladstar takes it internally as well and recommends it for heal bones.
So Rosemary Gladstar recommends it also. I just haven't gotten there. I read enough about it. I want to say it's anthocyanins, but I'm probably butchering that. Having kids in the family, I'm really careful about internal herb use. So I just don't mess with it. Someday I might, you know, after I actually get to meet these lovely women in person. So I go into a little bit of detail about how to do teas and tinctures. I kind of already talked about both of those. And syrup, I've already talked about. Drying, that's my preferred method because I feel like anything that's dried is stronger. I think the oil's concentrate or something. I don't know the science of it. So I harvest anything that's medicine is in the leaf or the flower when the flower is at its peak and beautiful before it passes and goes to seed. And then I tie it and hang it in my garage before it gets dusty. Hopefully I take it down and I strip all we'll pretend this isn't monkshood. I strip all the leaves. Generally, I have my kids do this, but I strip all the leaves onto the counter. I have a great little island, one herb at a time, and then I just store them in Ziploc bags I have a place in my mudroom that's really dark, and they seem to keep really well. I have made tinctures with dried herbs, and they're pretty strong. I think they're actually stronger with dried herbs. So that's kind of...
Do you use most of your herbs and make your tinctures just for your home use, or do you also sell them?
So I do not sell my tinctures, and I've taken some cottage food classes through Arrow and stuff, and I feel like to do it the way I would want to do it, I'd want to do a commercial kitchen. You have to dry the herbs, and I couldn't even sell my teas at farmers market. It was one of the reasons I pulled out of farmers market. There's just too many rules. And so I went to landscaping, make some money doing that, and then when I have time, I would love to be a part of a community situation where we just build a perfect, gorgeous kitchen that people can use to come and make value-added products for their farms. I think that would be excellent.
The rules you're talking about, is that a state mandated rule that you're talking about or the farmer's market locally?
It depends. Each farmer's market locally, when you sign up for that, they will send you a packet that has all of their rules. I have heard people say the Kalispell one is the most strict. I really just don't know. I was intimidated by that market, so I didn't do it. In Big Fork, they were pretty lax, but what they had was frequent visits from the health department. I was visited by the health department when I was there. They checked my produce, they checked my potatoes for scab. They were friendly, but I felt a little bit like, eyes in the headlights, cops are here, kind of,
The reason I ask that is they just changed the laws.
The cottage food laws.
The cottage food laws.
Yeah, they did.
There's a whole workshop on that, on how to farm and garden.
Right, and I went to a workshop, I don't know if it is the one you're talking about, and so they are largely more relaxed, especially in terms of baked goods and things, but you can't do like a cinnamon roll with cream cheese or...
Anything you don't have to refrigerate.
Right. And maybe tinctures are a part of that, I'm not exactly sure. So for me, it's just kind of in a division of time. I still have 3 kids at home. I still have to work, financially and stuff, so... as far as making money with tinctures, I have not done that. No, I'm happy to share them. I just really love to share them and, tell people about them.
Yeah.
But I would research using a glycerin-based or some other kind of thing for kids. I don't really want my kids taking tinctures with Everclear. It is the most effective. I tried potato vodka, regular vodka, Everclear, and Everclear visibly pulled the most goody out of the plant. The tinctures were darker. I did side-by-side comparisons, a little bit of a scientist, but Everclear was definitely most effective. And the guys at the liquor store by Smith's totally are used to people like us. They're like, oh, Everclear, do you make tinctures? It's like, yes, I do. Wow, okay, thank you. So that was cool. He's like, you should try potato vodka for your gluten-free clients. I'm like, you're awesome. So it was really cool. I mean, I'm just getting to know the community even more, but that kind of stuff always makes me happy. I haven't. I think that's what the herb farm and stuff uses. Right, and you can get different things online when you search doing it. I haven't done that. Okay, so that's kind of it for me on medicine, unless people have specific questions.
Yeah, you've alluded to it many times over, just saying, hey, you're pretty precautionary with your own children. You know, you're not going to, I guess just at what point do you engage with medicine? But, you know, there's risk. You may not clearly identify. You may contaminate things. You may mix things over.
Oh, yeah.
This has bigger implications. And then the rules that you just referenced directly, where are those rules coming from? What does that look like? What's the precautionary piece that you put into play?
Okay, so if I hear your question correctly, you're asking me like how much caution do I exercise? Where does it come from? And who's making up these rules?
Absolutely.
You got me on the rules. I mean, half of that stuff I think just comes from people who want you to spend your money in Walgreens. That's my opinion.
Sure.
But that's IMO right there. So a lot of that, I'm sure, you know, what happens, I took a master food preserver course, okay, because I wanted to learn more about food preservation. So fear-based. Very useful information, but I will say it was like one person got sick from canned potatoes at a potluck, and now no one should ever do that again. You know, I don't know. So I think a lot of rules and laws are made from a fear-based perspective of one thing went wrong somewhere, we need to protect everyone from themselves. Right. And in terms of running a business and being safe, in these days, it's a litigious society, I don't have to tell anybody that, you don't really want to mess around with things that could hurt people. From my own perspective, I don't want to hurt people with botulism or that sneaky thing next to my skull cap that doesn't have a square stem. It's like, you're not skull cap. You have a very similar flower, but, dude. So, you know, I will Google things. I'll admit it. And if I get enough responses that all agree with each other, I believe it. That's kind of like, that's lame, right? But that's what I base it on. You know, if Rosemary and Susan and 5 Google people agree, I'm pretty solid.
That's the legal, I think that's preponderance of evidence.
I mean, Wikipedia is not one of my sources, I believe, very much. Sorry.
Where's I'm on different rules. So I've been interested in also studying that, but not doing it professionally. But I've also really struggled with the whole source thing. Like when 2 people hear the same information, but they watch the same TV show, and I always wonder. I read some herbal books and you see all the references, and you're like, you just kind of reorganize everyone else's information, but this is become another source. And
Totally.
That with the internet too, it's really overwhelming because there's
No, you're right.
this whole collection of websites that I find they always correspond, and then there's always the people who are way different, and there's just those certain situations where you're like, okay, everyone's saying this, and I just don't believe it.
Well,
those moments.
so when you're talking about doubting information, I feel like you're back to this question, the precautionary piece. I will always err on the side of caution, especially with my children and people with compromised immune systems, which is potentially anyone. You don't know. Somebody could walk up to you and look totally healthy and be going through chemo, and that jar of pickles you sold them could be it for them because you didn't cut off whatever, you know. But you're fine because you have iron guts because you eat fermented food all the time. There's just there are too many variables. For me, it's a big responsibility to provide medicine and food to people, and I don't take it lightly. I had a fiasco on my property this year, and I had called a local landscaping company, shan't mention names, to just spray my driveway. Rock driveway, we needed to re-rock it. It had a terrible weed infestation. I'm like, just that, right? You'll see my place is an organic farm. So, yeah, it's really bad. I was in Hungry Horse camping off-grid. My 17-year-old son, who's clueless about such thing, was there when the guy showed up, and he said, we're here to spray for weeds. And my son's like, all right. And he didn't think, whoa, my mom doesn't spray nothing. Like, what are you talking about? Unfortunate thing. So he sprayed my entire acre with a broadleaf killer.
Oh no.
Yeah. All that said, I called the guy. I talked to him. I'm like, sorry. You know, because I had really lost my temper. And he said, look, I'm a gardener. I totally knew it wasn't right. And I'm like, how did you do it? And he said, well, because it was on the work order. And I'm like, your work order was wrong, dude. And he says, but I stayed 10 feet away from all of your plants everywhere, which you can tell now because my property's still very full of weeds. So thank God I have weeds everywhere right now. I got plantain and dandelion and, but what happened was I didn't know he was there. So it's summer and we're booking around barefoot. My chickens are grazing in this grass. For 2 weeks before I get the bill, he didn't mark it. He didn't flag it anywhere, which should be like totally legal. It probably is. And my son didn't tell me, hey, Mom, while you're gone, some dude came to the door, right? So this kind of stuff can totally happen. So erring on the side of caution, I do not harvest plantain off of my property for my tinctures. Unless it's in my hoop house, which I know he couldn't touch, and the girls probably just pulled it up today. So I don't have plantain here. So that is one I think I wrote on here. It's really good for bee stings and skin and stuff. So I don't know, did that answer your question?
Yeah.
It's tough. It's tough. I mean, so for me, I've heard a lot of experts say a lot of things. I've been on herb walks where people are like, I don't know what that is, and they stick it in their mouth. I'm not that person, you know? So like I said, I'll cross-reference as many different sources as I can, and then I'll grow it myself, and then I will try it. And I am basically my own guinea pig. Maybe not a great idea, but if I'm nervous about it at all, I won't do it, which is why I haven't done quite a few roots. You know, my midwives once told me that a burdock, it wasn't even burdock tincture, it was something that burdock basically, that they had read that burdock can be a cure for herpes. Now, I have this, I should have brought that. I have this nutrition book that's like this big. I can't remember the name of it. But it goes over herbs and food and everything is medicine. It's great, fantastic, beautiful book. And I'm like, I really would like to find that information in at least one other place. I have never found it in another place ever.
Is that the nutritional daily book?
You might be. Yeah, is it just like a Bible and they update it every couple years? Oh, it's awesome. Yeah, it goes by, you know, your issue or whatever. So I was, you know, I still am interested in that. I think everyone should be interested in things that will heal us. I mean, the reality is like almost everybody has herpes. It's not fun. So why take acyclovir if you can do something else? But I want to hear a lot of people say that that's the right thing to do because burdock is a no joking around. Any root herb in my book is pretty serious. I'm not going to mess around with it unless I feel solid about it. I'm kind of wimpy.
Why is that?
Why is which?
Why are the roots?
Well, so think about energy. I like to talk about energy because that's a lot of what I've learned about plants, just kind of the intuitive nature of it. So the question is why do I feel, because in my opinion, that roots are more potent. So my opinion is that roots are more potent because, so annuals have really wimpy root systems, right? And they just pull right out of your garden and they're done. And perennials have to store all their energy in their roots over time, every winter. Perennials in this climate have to be pretty burly. And if you're talking about a root plant or vegetable or whatever that puts on its energy in the form of a leaf and the root goes to China, like burdock, there's a lot of energy stored up in that plant. And if like horseradish, that's another one, you can't really get rid of it. So if you think about what it's doing with its energy all the time, putting all of its energy back into that root, that's all medicine. That energy is all medicine. I mean, look at tomatoes. All of their energy is in that gorgeous little red globe that we love so much. That's energy. And it sucks the life out of your soil because of it. So you just have to love your soil and think about that. They have pretty strong root systems too because they have to do a lot. So I just always think in terms of energy. That's how I harvest the medicine. That's how I think about how strong or potentially dangerous it is. I mean, so monkshood, this plant gets this tall, and it's an age-old poison. And I had a friend give it to me because he didn't want it growing next to his garlic. And I'm like, well, it's not going to taint your garlic, I don't think, but okay. So I think it's gorgeous, and it grows and it blooms late in the year. And I'm not as cautious about poison plants as some people because just in my experience, like cats don't go around eating your daylilies. And if they do, it's a little bit evolutionary. Because why? What are you doing eating a plant that's poisoned you? So, you know, my kids are not to eat anything in the garden without permission. And I've trained them that way. It's like being raised with guns. You just don't do it. If you want to eat something, let's talk about it. So a lot of my stuff that I grow is poison. And medicines, a lot of poisonous plants and weeds are also really powerful medicines. You know, red elderberry, which is what grew on the coast where I was, is poisonous, but the Native Americans use it as a really powerful medicine. And you'll find that in quite a few cases. If somebody says, that's a noxious weed, it's poisonous, it's got good stuff too. It's just, you don't mess around with it. You need to educate yourself. And I think a lot of the Native American texts, if you can get your hands on them, would be a really great resource for that. So, should I go ahead?
You had said a few minutes ago, I think that for herbs, you let them flower, and they're okay to harvest after they're flowered. A lot of people say to harvest before flowering.
Oh, so your question is to harvest. I stated to harvest herbs when they're flowering, and it's a question of. So Haley Moore taught me that. I asked her, when should I harvest my comfrey? And she says, when those blooms are going full bore, that's when all their energy is up. This is another energetic thing. So beautiful purple blossoms, the bees are in heaven. That plant is happy. I want happy plant for my medicine. Do I want blossoms like that skullcap, which is wherever, that are toast? That's not good medicine anymore. All its energy is already heading back down into that root for the winter. So I'm just thinking in terms of its strongest energy that it's going to give me for medicine.
But there's some things you probably, like certain things you do before they...
Well, mint is actually like mint and culinary herbs, oregano. Yeah, those kinds of things are probably better to harvest before flowering, but I've harvested them when they're flowering and they've still been great for cooking. I haven't tried to distill them into an oil or anything. I haven't done that yet. That's a whole other kind of medicine, which is probably great, but I'm not set up for it. So, does that cover questions on medicine? Should I even talk about food? Do we have time?
I'd say talk about pollinators.
Okay, talk about pollinators. Okay, brought all this food just for fun. Okay, what page is pollinators? Somebody who read my stuff.
Page 12.
Okay. So I am a big fan of pollinators. I put it on my business card. I do everything with a mind of pollinators. But in my mind, it's not that complicated, so it's not a very long talk. I would love to have hives. I'm just not there yet. I'd love to have goats and all kinds of stuff, but I got a 0 here. But my neighbor has hives, which I totally capitalize on. I get honey from him. My friend very sadly broke a jar of honey on my front porch, and we had like 15,000 honeybees all over it. So cool. So I'm very happy to have them there, and I do everything I can to make them happy and to make all. Sorry, does somebody have a question back there?
Yeah, when you said that the honey's, with all the honey, like, are they taking that back to their hive? Are they eating it right there?
Yeah, you wanted to know if they're eating the honey. That's all about food.
But like, are they taking it back and storing it when you...
I assume so. It's just like sugar water. It's food for them. So what I understand about beekeeping, and I don't understand a lot about it, this is the book he recommended, by the way. He's my beekeeping neighbor buddy. Beekeeping Questions and Answers by Dedant and Sons. It's an old book, and it's how he learned to do it, and he has really successful, awesome hives. He doesn't keep his own anymore. He has a company bring him hives every year, which just works out better for him because overwintering is tricky. He's getting up there in age, but a resource for hives is Tamarack Apiaries. It's in here under my resources. Wade and Lisa Foley, they have been at Free the Seeds and the fair and everything. They're really fun people.
We have videos on how to farm and garden of those.
Of them, yeah. And they've taught classes there. Yeah, they're fantastic, awesome people. And if you, I can't see how they make any money, because you walk into their store with a question, they'll just sit there and talk to you for like 2 hours. They're really just great people. And they've tried different kinds of hives. They're an excellent resource. And when I'm ready to buy from them, I am waiting for overwintered bees from them. That's plus my timing thing. But that's what I really want, is an overwintered Montana bee. I don't want to import a queen, get it from Murdoch's, which is probably great, but that's not what I want to do. I want a more sustainable bee situation. So honeybees aren't your only pollinators, obviously. I love my mason bees, my hummingbirds. I grow lots and lots of things just for hummingbirds because I love them and they pollinate. I grow Monarda for them. My scarlet runner beans are right next to my Carragana hedge, which I'll back up just a little bit. That Carragana hedge is such an excellent permaculture tool. Its stacking functions like crazy. It fixes nitrogen. It blooms at the same time as a lot of my fruit trees, and it just buzzes. You don't even want to mow near it or anything. Everything will sting you. It's full of bees when it's blooming in the spring. I'd have to check my calendar, but the hummingbirds nest in it. And it's too skinny for my stinking cats to kill the hummingbirds, so it's awesome.
How do you spell that?
What's called Siberian pea shrub.
So it's what Jerome was referring to it in his forest garden talk. It's also Carragana is the Latin term, scientific.
Siberian pea shrub is probably how you find it in a nursery. Caution, super aggressive, majorly fast grower, and it has thorns. So trimming it is not that fun sometimes. You want to dress for it. What we did is we didn't trim ours, and so now we have to take it on the sides and cut the big tall ones out just if you have to use a chainsaw because it's huge now. Like the bottoms are like that big. But when you chop it up, I've made biochar with it. It's excellent for making biochar, which soils we'll probably talk about. And firewood. I mean, we use it for our campfires. So we use all of that wood. It's nice, hot, clean burning wood. An important thing for all pollinators to have around is water. And they'll drown themselves in your swimming pool. So smaller water is better. I've experienced that. We have a bird bath. I always put a rock on it so that little critters can land and walk up into it and stuff. I just try to have water kind of everywhere. I let my faucet pour over a little bit so there's a puddle of water on my pond liner, which I'll get to later if we get to it. But yeah, and they'll stick around if you have water and they won't if you don't. Same with, okay, bug management, I shouldn't overstep, but ladybugs, you know, lots of critters that you want, they want a little bit of water. The other thing I do, obviously, is I just have flowers everywhere, everywhere. When we're done, if we get a chance to look at pictures, and I won't boast too much, but I really, really love my place. I still have tons of petunias and cosmos and calendula just everywhere. So I just keep all my flowers going for as long as I can. And I plant as much as I can to start early on. You know, crocus and hyacinth and monkshood goes late and asters and everything. So I try to stretch out my flower season to keep everybody happy. And the scarlet runner beans, the hummingbirds love, the monarda, firecracker they love, and red salvia, which is really hard to find. Those are the three they really like, but I've noticed that they come and they check out the petunias and the cosmos, and they're like, hey, what do you have here? Which brings them into my yard. So it works that way. And the other thing I have is just a diversity of plants so that I have all different kinds of pollinators. I have a diversity of fruit that all pollinates at different times. So I'm assuming you guys know that with most fruit trees and some berries like elderberries, you need to be aware of what they need as a pollinator. They need another cousin, so to speak, to help them attract, because they flower at the same time and they need to cross-pollinate to make their fruit. So just, read your light labels or talk to your person who's selling you your goods or whatever. And I don't use any pesticides ever. So I have aphids. It sucks. I'm not going to spray them though. I'm just not. I mean, I'll pick them off and feed them to the chickens. And I use BT, Bacillus thuringiensis, I want to say, like a white powder on my cabbage, if I think about it. But even that I don't really do because it can kill other things that I think might be good. So I just kind of peel the cabbage leaves off, and this is what makes me a permaculturist. But other than that, I'm not that strict. If I really have I've had 2 really bad infestations of ants and spiders in the house. I will have the inside edges of the house sprayed by a pro, and supposedly it's pyrethrins, which are supposedly not as bad, I don't know. And then maybe just the outside edge of the house. But I've found dead bees even from that, and it just bums me out. I don't really want to do that, so we usually just tough it out. And then, I did mention know your timing, and that's really about trying to have pollinators come into your yard, especially when your fruit trees are blooming. You can really have a problem with fruit set if you don't have pollinators hanging out. You can borrow beehives too. Like there's somebody in the valley, wish I knew. Do you know? Who lends beehives locally. Great Northern Bee Company?
I know they're local.
It's a local woman.
Put the hives on people's farms.
Yeah. And my distant in-law cousin people do it, but they do big places. They go to like North Dakota and Fresno. So it's a business. It's a thing. It's a possibility for more business, I feel, because pollinators are getting harder and harder to come by. And so echinacea, milkweed are 2 really good pollinator attractors. Butterflies really love them. And this is milkweed, which for the first time this year, I'm going to leave it up. I have had monarchs in my yard. I'm not sure how aggressive it's going to be once the seeds get to spread. We'll see. But it's a little bummer to pull up. No, the seeds aren't mature in it yet. So, but I like it. It's beautiful, has pink flowers. Butterflies definitely like it. Butterflies love echinacea, purpurea, the pink stuff. I've had so many cool pictures of butterflies parked out on those guys. And yarrow, flowering mint too. But yarrow, I have all kinds of yarrow all over the place. It's maybe a little too aggressive, but it attracts a lot of good bugs and pollinators to the yard. And then cilantro, it bolts. If you think about it, it bolts. So I just let it bolt, and then I let it go to seed. And in my garden, I have a big pollinator strip, and it's just for attracting pollinators to my garden. It's not I don't eat anything, I don't harvest anything from there. I let it all go to seed, and then I can weed the garden beds without feeling guilty because my pollinator strip has, and plus it's really, really beautiful, but it has all the stuff that I want in there. And I'm going to put another one in between my fruit trees because I like it so much, and all my berries are back there. And I want more borage. My borage never seems to be able to compete with a calendula. That is one thing about that stuff. It will outcompete everything. Your onions, yarrow, quackgrass, whew, stuff's intense. But I still love it. So I try to harvest it. I had one of my early teachers told me when you harvest comfrey to give it love because it can be aggressive if you chop at the roots and stuff. So I talk nice to it and everything, like we're cutting you down for the winter, no offense, you know. My husband chops it up with a hedge trimmer for me so I can go put it on my garden. And then, so I've started doing that with the calendula when we pull it. I'm like, I still love you. It's not personal, but you got to go. Like, you're getting out of bounds. So we got to pull it sometimes. Yeah, so I think that's kind of my spiel on pollinators. And flowering mint, like I said, I have mason bees and my flowering mint, like it's a constant buzz. Like it's loud. You can hear it in the house. I have rock gardens outside of my house that they can stay in. The mint will stay there. So it doesn't have to go in, you know, I have actually put mint in my garden and I continue to try to dig it out. I wouldn't recommend it to anybody. It's very aggressive. So I think the other thing with pollinators is just to have good vibes about it. Like people will like try to cornhole pollinators in their house, their places. It's like, I put up mason bee house. Where are the mason bees? Where are the mason bees? It's like, just chill. They're gonna come, plant some mint, let it flower, you know, make friends with your neighbors, come together on some beehives. You know, a lot of gardening and all this stuff I feel is less about fear and angst and anxiety and, crap, I have aphids. It's like, crap, I have aphids, but I don't want to spray, so I better get okay with that, you know, and just pay attention to everything all the time. I mean, that's kind of my overwhelming motto is pay attention. I mean, I've had some really bad, sad stories. I had the year of tears last year where I had so much food and stuff go to waste. I had an elk hide go bad. It just terrible. I cried and cried. And my kids were like, "What are you crying about that? It's so weird." I'm like, your dad got an elk. His friend hiked up the mountain and got the hide 2 weeks later, and then I let it rot. I am like a bad person. Like, I'm probably going to hell for that. And they're like, Mom, you know. Seriously, that's how I felt. It's like that to me. You know, when my food goes bad, it's terrible. If you pay more attention, if you look all the time, you check your stores, you look for rotted food, you know, you didn't get to harvest your skullcap because it all went to flower too late. Just spend time in your garden, spend time with your stuff, you know, and you start noticing pollinators. You might think you don't have them, but they're out there. And bad bugs pollinate too. You know, wasps might sting your kids, but they pollinate the crap out of everything. I mean, they're all, and house flies, we call them poop flies at my house, but because we live next to a lot of horses and cattle. But, you know, bugs that you think aren't that awesome are great pollinators. If they land on a flower and go to another plant, they're pollinating it and they're doing their job. Wasps also parasitize bad bugs in your garden. So just careful about killing stuff is kind of like where I'm at with that. I mean, my wasps, when they're in my hoop house, sting me in the face, and it's a bummer. So I do I take their nests out of there. It's like, you can't live here. I mean, you can visit. That's kind of like, you know, if you want to come in and visit the tomato plants, that's cool. Let's not live here. You're going to sting me, and I'm turning out to be kind of allergic to them, so it's really not a good deal. But, you know, so I do everything with caution and pay attention. So you don't want aphids. Well, the petrol galls on the bases of your poplar trees are a major problem for your garden then. So it might be worth it to take down that poplar tree. It might. I don't know. You know, so you just kind of have to weigh everything and pay attention. So I don't know. There's probably a lot more I could say about pollinators, and I'm not a super pro about it, but that's where I am with it. And when I do a pollinator installation for someone, I just have a mind to the plants that I know really love them, and I'm all about flowers. So do I have any time to talk about food, or should we just look at my food?
Let's look at your food.
I
Okay.
feel like foods that people don't really think of as medicine, because I see like you're talking about food medicine. Like,
All food is medicine.
yeah, exactly. So like, where do you? I guess even with your children, like, what's your technique for just like facilitating that? Obviously, I'm sure it's casual, and I'm sure it's on a daily basis. Maybe if your friends have like a friend over or something, and that kid's like, that's bad for me. Are you like, I don't know, do you deal with those situations?
So like, how do I talk about food as medicine, or?
Yeah, I guess you told us all of this example, but like.
Oh, I'm just a Nazi about it. I'm just like, sugar is bad, stop eating that. I grow really good stuff, eat this food. No. Kind of, yes, actually.
It's not a bad approach.
And like you're saying, like, oh, the root stores the energy, and like that's medicine going down there. And like I like that energy movement concept, and like those really complex constituents are like, you know, it took a lot for that to build that. So
Right.
that's a more complex store of energy.
Yep.
And again, when we digest it.
Well, I think it's the same when you talk about food like this. This isn't a root vegetable, but it took all summer to make this baby. And they are full of vitamins. Their seeds are so good for you, you know. So I don't do anything with my kids other than talk about everything and make them work in the garden, and then I make them eat the food. It's kind of a force feed thing, which is part of the reason they're probably not super stoked about it right now. But I am certain that they will grow up to be adults who will be.
Yeah.
And it
So-
will be, because my kids were the same way. Oh, no, they didn't want it.
I didn't eat
Right.
Oh, we're eating healthy?
Yeah. So, and that's what they say too. And my kids, this is pretty great. I love this. They're like, Mom, everybody thinks we're so weird. We always have a huge bowl of tomatoes on the counter. There's food everywhere in our house. It's so weird. I'm like, I know, isn't it great? So they get made fun of at school because they take like a crazy stir fry with like venison and stuff, and it's good. You know, they're like, hey, my food is good. Yours is lunchable, dude.
Yeah.
Really? They're like, Lunchables are way more cool. So they'll come back. I trust, I pray. That's where I am with that. So I want to talk just real quick about, for me, what I was going for here was yield, because that was one of the things I took away from my PDC when I first learned about permaculture, and yield and maintenance are really important. And so everything that you read, if you ever decide to read this really long thing, is focused largely on yields. And what I have learned by experience that has decreased or increased my yields. And, you know, paying attention is probably a main one that good example, dill, love dill. First year, so when I first brought my acre, it was nothing but grass, house, chicken coop, and 2 apple trees and Carragona hedge. It now has probably 6,000 square feet of garden, I'm guessing, including a huge hoop house and stuff. And I started little by easy, expand. And I wanted to try this, I think Susan Weed talks about it actually, just let stuff come up where it's gonna come up. I'm like, okay, let's try that. Oh my gosh, oh, no, don't do that. Harvesting will be the worst thing ever. You'll be like, oh, where are the tomatoes? I didn't trellis my tomatoes the first year in my hoop house. My hoop house kept coming apart, and I would wake up and the wind was whipping it. And so everything I've learned has been from that PhD in hard knocks. I mean, the thesis is coming, right? It's only 18 pages in. So just pay attention. When stuff's starting to go wrong, I don't think having a bad attitude or being bummed out about it is really the answer, but let's get in there and fix it. So last year, I let the dill come up in my carrots. And I can tell the difference between dill and carrots. And then dill is more blue. I love dill. I make a lot of pickles. Dill is pretty. It traps the aphids in my garden, which bums me out when I want to make pickles with it. But the aphids are on them instead of the kale, so that's good. So I thought, well, let's let the dill go. And then life became what it becomes in my life, and the dill was this tall. And I was like, oh, crap. That dill's really big. It's got like hot air balloons of dill seed covering my whole entire carrot crop. And I got a really lovely crop of baby carrots. They're beautiful. 5 trillion tiny carrots. And I harvested every single one because I'm not going to waste them. And it was the biggest pain in the butt ever. So that said, planting and spacing is so awesome. If you want good yields, I know it's not, like I have this idea of permaculture with swales and stuff, and it's all, you know, lovely and crowded. And in my life, first of all, I'm married to a cabinet guy. So he may as well be like a doctor, right? He's like, it's not, you can look up from my bedroom, he's like, it's not straight lines out there. We gotta get some straight lines. Like, okay, I can do that, you know? But I want space between my stuff so I can get in and take care of it. You know, I planted my garlic bed in a really nice, best soil every year. I don't know, I could go on a lot of stuff, but the garlic bed was in this great, it was probably about that big. And my thing is if I can kneel and reach, we're good. Well, I could kneel and reach from both sides, but there was a strip in the middle I couldn't get to. And I had to tiptoe through the garlic, and I'm like, oh, I'm compacting my soil, this is terrible. Okay, next year, don't do that. Put a path in your garden. So I just learned from that kind of stuff. Every year, that's where the notes come in. Because you think you'll remember that that variety of pepper didn't do well, but you won't. So notes are awesome. And I have little shards of notes everywhere. And I just shove them in there because I'm really not that on top of it anymore. But what I do, and this is the TMI perhaps, this sits next to my toilet. And so every morning, I'm like, oh, what was the temperature yesterday? Okay, there it is, snow, overcast. Oh, snow and the swans right there on the 1st. So I have that. It's not a big, long diatribe. It's a couple little notes that you make while you're going pee in the morning. And you get your information, and it's really, really, really valuable. And I write stuff, pretty much all my notes are in here now. I actually have to transfer back into this. But one thing I do that I have a very awesome daughter with beautiful fine motor skills who does this for me when I plant my seeds. So we separate out, we write the day where the moon is in its cycle, what kind of music we're listening to, and how much we're dancing, because that's very important. I'm not kidding, actually. Peppers, and then the variety, and then how we planted them, if we use a 6-pack or flat or what that year, what soil mix, that kind of thing. And then next to the date, I'll tell her, like, right, we started that too late. So that I remember that, well, my carrots didn't get as long as I wanted because I started them 2 weeks too late this year. And I'm not as good about outside planting in here, but that's been really, really helpful to me. So my tools, this really helps with your yields because if your yields are awesome, but you don't harvest them, they're not really yields, they're just plants. This thing is killer for harvesting herbs and lettuce, cutting grasses, like ornamental grasses, you just want to take the seeds off the top. I just quickly searched it when I was writing this together, and they call it a sickle. I've always called it a scythe. Japanese sickle. It was like 15 bucks, like best tool ever. Not easy to carry. You put it in your, like I always have some kind of a tool thing, and I have cut my arms on it. When it was brand new, I always cut my finger when I was harvesting lettuce. Still cool. I love it. This is my favorite tool for harvesting roadkill, which meat is an important part of eating. Roadkill is free if you know it's fresh and safe. If you witness it get hit, or if you hit it, please harvest it. And if you're not going to harvest it, call your friend who you know will, because the wasted meat on the roads is personally killing me. So this is a $10 Mora knife. You can split wood with this thing. You can do everything with it. And if you ever want me to teach you how to harvest roadkill and butcher it, I would totally sign up for that. Take my card and call me if you kill a deer, and if I can come, I will come and help you. I promise.
I had a rabbit, and I went back for it, like, hoping that I barely bumped it, and it was, like, totally smushed.
Aww.
Like, I was hoping it was just, like, the head was smushed or something, and it was, like, so pancake.
Sorry,
that
smushed
was also
rabbit.
a good experience to, like, see the pancake, to be like...
That's what happens when you hit a critter, yeah. Did you have a question?
Going back,
Sorry.
but also-
That's responsible.
Right?
What was the name of the knife?
Mora. It's a Swedish knife. I actually carry a much bigger, crazier knife than this, but I'm going to start carrying this one because my bag every day is like 80 pounds, and this is a little better on my shoulders. But I've seen this used. My kids go to Ravenwood, the outdoor school, and we did a family camp out with him, and he used this for everything. And I'm like, I want one. So there's that. It fits in my day bag. I'm a little bit of a psycho. I'll walk into the school not even thinking about it and have this huge knife in my... Maybe not right, but anyway. So this is where I go all the time. I have every tool I need always with a soil knife on one side for digging weeds, cutting bags, cutting tool, anything. And it even has measuring on it, which I've never used. But if you want to measure that carrot that didn't grow because of the dill, you can. And my Felcos, which are my right-hand woman right here. These guys are awesome. I've gone through 2 pairs. I swap them back and forth. My husband takes them apart and sharpens for me. You can get replacement parts for them. And if you keep them sharp and oiled, they'll cut everything. You can deadhead roses with them. You don't need snippers. So those are my favorite tools.
Can you, that tool again, that you just cut out, can you tell us more? No, the Felco you said?
Yes.
Felco pruner. Because there's different kind of pruners.
Yeah.
So can you tell me more about that?
Okay, so you want to know why I love this one?
Yes.
Okay. Because I've used a lot, and I've learned that buy it nice or buy it twice is how I have lived, and I'm going to stop doing that because I wasted a lot of money on junk. I do keep some junk around for the kids who help me because they always leave it somewhere. But basically, my husband bought these for me Mother's Day probably 12 years ago because he saw I was starting to really do a lot of gardening, and all these tools were just junk. I'd come and be like, can you sharpen this or something? It won't work. I hate it. It doesn't fit my hand. So, and this I really like because for my hand, which is, I don't know, small-ish, it's, it fits. Well, yes, but it's not really, really small. And it's, yeah, but this fits me. So I recommend if you go into a good store, they're gonna let you open the packaging and hold them. And for me, it needs to be, I am a landscaper, so I do this all day long. I need to be able to do this without getting arthritis or having to use my other hand or using Coronas that fall apart. Sorry, Corona. Coronas totally fall apart. So it's process of elimination for me. There are a lot of different Felcos. I have noticed that the new ones I got are not as good. These are Swiss made. They probably aren't anymore.
And like, seriously, like the handle rotates a little bit.
I don't have that one.
Okay,
I don't like that
well,
one.
well, I'm left-handed, and like we always have one, and that's why my mom liked it. I
Yeah.
guess that's what it was. But
Reflex.
They make them where like one of them rotates when you squeeze, and some people who have arthritis say it's really good.
Right. Well, and that's what I mean. I mean, it's kind of just for me, still power tools and still loppers are the bomb. Anybody who's ever used my gear is like, oh yeah, I'm buying still loppers today. They're great. And they make huge ones for 2-inch. Like you can go through Carragana hedge like crazy. And I feel that these are the best. But there may be better ones out there. This is like $65. It's not a little, it's not a lot. It's real reasonable. And
But they'll last a lifetime.
they last forever. And A.M. Leonard sells the parts for them. They sell the sheaths for them. You can get a sheath that does both, but then your britches fall down. So I like it this way. Plus, it's super sexy. So it looks really good with my wide brim hat and my cowboy shirt. It's just kind of it's my personality. I think everybody in Whitefish knows me now. So a couple other tools that I brought that I really like that you wouldn't think of. This is a nylon paint strainer, which is great for like if you want to sieve your herbs, but you want to squeeze the goodie out of them. If you want to make chokecherry juice, you're not supposed to have the pits. So you just boil a little water over them, put them through here, and then let them sit in a sieve, and then you can twist this baby forever. This will take all kinds. I wash it in hot. Comes clean. It just did chokecherries. You would never know. And it's amazing. It's the best thing ever.
What is that called?
It's a super tough paint strainer. Yep. Yes. Farmer's cheese.
It's like better than just cheesecloth because you're not like.
Cheesecloth. Cheesecloth's a nightmare to use.
Yeah.
No, don't use cheesecloth. I mean, it's a little, you're like, nylon on my food. But, I mean, sometimes you got to think about, I got to save time. Like, I'm not going to be here all day with cheesecloth.
If you're
So.
using a hard time, it's not decomposing, it's still there.
Yeah, it's still there. Yeah. I mean, I did finally buy another one because I lost one somewhere. So this is an Ace on Meridian, has all this stuff. Ace on Meridian is also a really great resource for gear. So I don't know. I could go on and on, but if you guys have questions, I'd love to talk about growing food. I didn't get to talk about that as much, but a big part of growing food is harvesting and processing it. I think it can't be said enough that you need to know how to handle your food and to grow what you know you're going to eat or that you know you can sell or share. Unless you have goats or chickens, and like me, it's like they're going to get almost all of my chard because I just can't get my family to eat chard anymore. So I eat chard, I have clients who eat chard, and my chickens love chard. So I'm in luck because I need greens, and in the winter when there's snow on the ground, they're like, where are my greens, Mom? And I have bought them spinach, and I will do it, but I feed them zucchini. I store zucchini until December. So this zucchini I harvested probably in August, and the trick is you don't put it in your refrigerator. You put it in a cool, dark place, and it is firm. I could cook with it right now. But what's awesome is, and everybody I know who has big, ugly zucchini, they're like, do you want my zucchini for your chickens? I'm like, yes, because you just cut it down the middle and the chickens are so happy. And same with squash. If you get a squash that goes funky or anything, the magnesium in the seeds is really, really good for chickens, and they will go right for the seeds. So there's just a lot of that kind of stuff that knowing how to harvest it is really important, but there's always, having chickens and stuff is a nice fallback for the guilt of the wasted food. That's my reality. Yes?
What about weeding with a hoe or with what if just there's a disaster?
There's a disaster, you hire children to weed. No, seriously. You have to really teach them how to be gentle. So my daughter and all of her friends know more about plants than probably I don't know, any kid you could find on the street. She can identify weeds. Lamb's quarters is her favorite weed because it's really easy to pull. But seriously, with weeds, the best thing is to stay on top of them and to plant your stuff far enough apart for a hula hoe, because a hula hoe won't move the soil out of the way. A hula hoe is like this. So you go back and forth, and you're just disrupting the roots, basically. And then I wouldn't water after hula hoeing. Usually I would pull, if you're pulling like a lot of dandelions out of carrots, whatever, I'd water after to get the roots to calm down. But if you're hula hoeing, let everything die and then water. I mentioned in here and under resources, Lower Valley Farms, Mandy Girth taught a class on weed control that was pretty awesome. And I haven't tried it. I think she calls it sterile bed, where you, in the spring, she calls it tilthing. They're pretty no-till out there. But she's something really light. Like I have a dethatcher for lawns that would probably work with real light little fine tines. And then you water it, and then you put black plastic on it for 2 weeks. So just a little bit germinates at a time, and you take it off and you torch it, just lightly. And you can even do that after you've planted carrots, just when they start to come up, torch the weeds. I haven't tried it. Full disclaimer, it sounds scary to me. I'm like, torching your...
A lot of farmers do that in the valley now. They have these torch weeders.
Yeah.
That they use
We bought one.
carrots especially.
Yeah, I tried to make it so it wouldn't happen. Oh, it's not mine.
I was going to see that one right out.
It's okay, it's okay. I have my alarm set that remind me to do stuff with that chime, and it's like, for me, that takes my brain into going, oh no, what did I not do? But weeding, I would definitely say, if it gets really bad, just ask for help. Remember that weeding is like the most fulfilling task on the planet after vacuuming. It's all attitude, baby. It's all attitude. It's just that you look at your garden, you're like, oh, it's so lovely without weeds. Well, you got to do it if you want it to be that way. And if you let the weeds go, you're going to pay the price in your yields. 100%. Plus, the weeds are going to go to seed, and they're going to be a way bigger problem the next year. So one of the things I do for weeds, because I think the worst weed in the garden ever is quackgrass, is I use pond liner on my paths. And I go to 2M all the time for my business, so they don't give me, they sell me remnants for cheaper than you would pay. It's a big investment. I've done a little bit at a time, but then I cut it in my paths, and then I dequack everything, because what was happening was I tried cardboard, and I tried straw, and everything, and the quack would just come back up through it. And then as soon as it was up and happy, it was moved back into my garden beds, and then I'm like, and I'm fighting, and it grows through potatoes. It'll go through garlic. It's terrible. But I haven't had quack on my garden for a year now, not even a blade. If I find a blade, I dig it. I don't pull it. It's a very important thing about quackgrass. And that is where this thing is super awesome. I actually took a video of me with Barton Morse, who taught me a lot. And what we did was he uses a broad fork, is another awesome tool. He doesn't use a broad fork, he uses a digging fork, but a broad fork is a much bigger version of it to loosen the soil. And then I would go through it, and then we'd find the quackgrass, and then you sift through it really gently until you find the end of the root. Otherwise, you have the sound of failure, is what my daughter calls it. It's like, oh, the root broke. So perennial bindweed, morning glory, is almost impossible to get out of your garden. Don't let it spread. And it is the one thing I might use something on. I'm going to start with vinegar. It's in my hoop house, which I'm really worried about. So go to the roots as much as possible. Stay on top of weeds. You're going to be a lot happier. Your plants will be a lot happier. All that said, feed most of them to your chickens. And if they're good medicine, harvest them. If they're plantain, you're digging plantain out, because plantain will pop right out. Eat it. Or, like purslane, eat it, right? It's really, like purslane is so good, but it will totally take over your garden. Do not mess around with purslane. These are just things like you will learn in time. Like your friend will go, hey, have you seen this plant before? It's kind of weird. It looks like a baby rubber tree. I'm like, oh my God, that's purslane. It's in your garden. First of all, eat it. Second of all, get it out. Because her garden, I saw her, she's got a place in Charlo, covered purslane. Covered. They've tried everything. They've dug it, they've vinegared it. I don't even want to think about what they have to do to get it under control now. So get it out. Go home, get it out. It gets, it has really tiny little flowers. They're really nondescript. You wouldn't even know it's flowering. Yeah, I'm hoping I don't have a problem with mine, because I planted tomatoes near where I was finding it. I thought I got it all out, but the tomatoes, I did 3 tomatoes outside just to see how well they do compared to my hoop house. and I'm not going to do it again because it's a waste of garden space. But they just did the bleh thing, even though they had cages, which is why cages are not good. That's the other thing I should say real quickly as far as yields is trellising is where it's at. Trellising is huge. It's a tremendous help for the garden. I have not done it and done it. I highly recommend doing it before you even plant. Don't.
What about all tall vegetables, or you mean tomatoes?
No, tomatoes. Tomatoes, cucumbers, snow peas, sugar snaps, scarlet runner beans. And I even, after the yields I had this year, would trellis my peppers. Oh my God, my pepper plants were like, damn, they were terrible full, awesome full. I had bell peppers that were that big. Yeah, I had 2 full harvests of a white trash bag full of pepperoncinis off of 10 plants. So I got yields pretty dialed. But all that said, I just had my last batch of pepperoncinis go bad in my fridge because I couldn't get them done. I couldn't get them pickled. So I grew way too many, and I feel bad because now I have a bag of bad pepperoncinis. Crap. So just think about all that, you know. But what happened was last year I had rabbits and mice, and they ate all my peppers. So I got 2 cats, and we took care of the rabbits in other ways, and now I have a lot of food. Last year I had a dozen at least pumpkins get completely carved out like Cinderella carriage by mice. Not one in probably 100 winter squash did I have one. I had one actually that had grown up into my corn and was dangling where the little buggers couldn't get it, that was unscathed by mice. I couldn't sell them. They were unmarketable. I had a couple clients who were like, I don't care, I'll eat it. But other than that, I had a whole bunch of questionable food. So trellising is great for that. Mice will eat your cucumbers like crazy. And if you trellis them, they can't get them. I have trellis cantaloupe. You have to put them in like a little pantyhose thing or something because they're a little heavy for trellising. But trellising tomatoes is totally where it's at. And I use T-posts. I get that 4-inch, it's like nylon. I get it at Ace. String that really tight, and then I tie it up to the roof of my hoop house I use baling twine because my neighbor is a rancher and it's everywhere. It's free. It's not awesome stuff. And then before I even put the tomatoes in, I do that because otherwise you just won't get to it. And then as soon as they're about this tall, I use a little twisty and tie them to the trellising. And then as often as I can remember, I go in and I tie them up to it. And you'll get the occasional wonky tomato that had to grow around it, but it still tastes good. And you can walk through your hoop house and you can see your harvest because I've done it the other way, and you just have to be like on a huge Easter egg hunt if you don't trellis your tomatoes. Plus, rodents get it, and if you have bad nematodes, I don't know the name of them, probably wireworms, they get into the bottoms of them. And blossom end rot's not good if they touch the ground. So anyway, trellising is awesome. So I should probably stop, but.
Yeah, any other questions?
Do you mind talking real quick about voles? Is there any expensive type of rodents? And then the sentence, mix it up between blood and stink?
Yeah. So she would like me to talk about voles for a minute, and I will keep it brief. I kept that rodent control thing super simple. Deer fencing, I just wouldn't mess around with anything else. You just have to fence them. If you have to mess around with other things, then plant skid is a really good product. It's a blood-based pellet. Basically, it's just dried pork blood. The deer spook by it, but I will tell you they get used to it. So they also don't like things that smell bad, and you can buy things that smell bad, or you can make them pretty easily. You can do a couple eggs, some Tabasco, because if it's spicy, it bums them out too. Tabasco or cayenne or whatever you have. If you have your own peppers, use your own, obviously. And then, like a little dish soap to make it stick to stuff, and then water. I fill it in a gallon milk thing, and pardon me, I put it outside and I let it get really raunchy. Like rot, the stuff's got to get foul. Like skunk spray bad. Put it in and puree it so it goes through a sprayer. Put it in a sprayer and spray your, and the time I did it the most, I was putting on rose blossoms and it worked really well. But you have to do it in the mornings. You don't want to burn the plant. But they make products like that now. Bonide makes one, I think, and it's usually just garlic and stinky stuff. And sometimes it's cayenne, and I will tell you that if you spread it, wear a mask, because it's like it makes you choke. And the deer will sneeze. I mean, I took a class when I first moved here with Bill Clanton. He had a handout for a long time in CHS organic and stuff, and he had a few methods that I haven't ever tried. I did try the one, mothballs. I found these weird little container things to hang around my garden. I used mothballs. Now that's for deer. For voles, you have to get a cat. That's the only thing I've ever had be effective. I have trapped them. I won't use poison. I actually had got desperate and used poison for a little bit, and I found green mouse turds in my chicken feed. And I was like, deal breaker, I'm done, that's gross. So I won't do that again. They make some wood-based poison that I've seen that the rodents eat, but I haven't seen that it works. So I can't totally attest to it. Since I got the cat, I got a kitten, and then we rescued a feral cat. And this year I had no damage at all. None. Zero. The other thing I use, and I'm sorry if you're delicate because I'm really not delicate at all, is this. And somebody in the audience knows I do this, and it's probably not very nice, but she's seen me do it. Because when you find a vole nest, they scatter. If you can get them, cut them in half. Be merciful, please. Kill them. There are terrible creatures. I'm sorry. There's probably some purpose in the universe. Not on my farm, there isn't. They're awful. And the other thing you can do that I have done and it works really, really well is corral them. It's kind of like if you're going to catch earwigs, right? Like you put cardboard down, you will get all the earwigs to live underneath that. We did a bale of straw in the garden one year. And now my husband and I are hunters. Like we didn't go into all that. So this is just who I am. It's how I was raised a rancher, you know. So I have a different mentality about things. I'm not very gentle. But he's like, we have snake shot for your 22. So we figured out the voles were under there. We tried stomping them, which is a ridiculous, useless dance that will never work. So we lifted it and shot them with snake shot. And it's like a small shotgun. You don't want to shoot your foot. You got to be careful. Totally, we killed 9 voles doing that in like 2 minutes. So the last winter I had bagged leaves and I went hunting in big timber and they stayed for 2 weeks and came back. And my cat and my dog, I knew there were voles in there because my cat and my dog were both like, oh yeah, what's in here? And as soon as I moved the bag, they went everywhere. But the cat and the dog killed almost all of them. So the other thing is you can train your dogs. It's Jack Russell Terriers are really good at mousing, ratting, whatever. So I think predators are really the main thing. And I try to keep predator birds off my property because of my chickens. But if I didn't have chickens, I would make my property more hospitable to predator birds. You know, I chase off magpies and everything because they'll steal eggs and they'll eat my crops and they'll eat my chickens. And they just don't live well together, unfortunately. So.
How do you chase off magpies?
I send my 8-year-old out screaming into the yard. I'm not kidding. It's very effective. Legally, you're not supposed to kill them. So.
Our neighbor said that she shot one and then.
Whoops.
It's
okay. We don't know your neighbor.
Yeah, she recommended it. But anyway, she shot a magpie and then they wouldn't come back.
Yeah.
You know, because they were, you know.
I didn't do this, but that's true. I don't know how I came by that information. It is, for the record, illegal to kill magpies. They're a protected bird. For the record.
Oh, were you getting ready? One quick question. Yeah. You said here, never store canned goods with the ring.
Yeah, never. Never. I didn't get there. Sorry. Because all the bacteria that can hurt you will pop the lid off. And if you leave the ring on and it tries to pop the lid, it will reseal and you won't know that. And those bacteria you can't smell, taste, or see. So it won't be like you'll open it and it's moldy, or you'll open it and whoo, it's bad. No, you won't know that. So if you take the ring off after you've water bath can and let it sit overnight, store all of your stuff in a nice cool pantry, preferably not a hot one because that'll pop lids too, then any bad bacteria will pop your lid. Especially with canned goods other people give you. You have no clue how they did it. Lovely, lovely thing to give, very dodgy. So.
We have a good video about that too.
Do you? Good. Yay. Okay, I'm done. Thank you. If you guys have other questions for me, I'd love to answer stuff. My email address is on my card. You guys can all share this stuff. I brought it to share. I don't know what that looks like. We can like maybe carry these over there or something. You can't have my books though, but you can look at them.
And obviously she has a huge wealth of knowledge and experience growing in this area, so definitely grab her card.
And I'm sorry I didn't mention it, but that resource list, when you get down to the people thing, is awesome. All those people I mentioned on there, if you see them teaching a class or anything, do it. They're great, great people.